A few weeks ago, I moved to a small town for a month-long project. I was excited but also nervous. I needed peace and quiet to get my designs done. The cottage I rented was old but charming. I loved the woods around it. They were beautiful, especially with the autumn colors. At first, everything felt perfect. One clear evening, I sat by the window with a cup of warm tea. I could hear my pencil scratching against the paper. It was cozy. But then, I heard it. Soft tapping on the window. I thought it was just a branch. But then it happened again, 3 taps, then silence. I felt a chill run down my spine. I shrugged it off. Who would even be outside at this hour? The next night, the tapping returned. It was louder this time. I tried to focus on my work, but it wouldn't stop. I glanced at the window, feeling uneasy. Again, 3 taps. Then everything went quiet. I felt my heart race. I leaned closer to see outside but spotted nothing, only dark shadows swaying in the moonlight. I told myself it was just the trees. On the 3rd night, things changed. I heard whispers creeping in. They were soft, like a distant conversation. I couldn't make out any words, but it felt strange, like something was trying to reach me. I felt knots in my stomach. Was it just my mind playing tricks? It was unsettling. It felt both eerie and oddly familiar. The next day, I explored the attic. The air was stale. Dust filled the sunlit beams. I found old newspapers piled in a box. They detailed the stories of women who had gone missing in the area. Each story sent chills down my spine. I thought about those nights, about the tapping and whispers. I wondered if those girls were still around. That night, the tapping was more intense. I sat in the dim light of the fireplace. My heart pounded as I looked out the window. Everything suddenly went silent. I felt like I could hear my own heartbeat. And then I saw it. A figure standing close to the cottage. I swear they were looking right at me. "Are you okay?" I asked, but they didn't respond. They just stood there, still and unblinking. My knees felt weak. I stumbled back from the window and felt paralyzed. My head spun. Then, the whispers returned, louder this time. They called my name. I shook. I turned back to the window, but the figure was gone. Just darkness outside, pressing against the glass. I held my breath, unsure. Was it all just in my head? The night dragged on, echoing with whispers and uncertainty. I wondered if something was following me or if it was just my imagination. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in that cottage. Was it the house that was haunted or me? I was left with more questions than answers. And I didn't know what would come next. The next morning, I woke up feeling groggy. The night had taken its toll. I needed to break the cycle of fear that had seeped into my thoughts. I decided to take a walk in the woods. The trees were taller than I expected, majestic, yet intimidating. The crisp air helped clear my mind, and I focused on the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. As I wandered, I stumbled upon an old trail. It was overgrown, suggesting it hadn't been used in years. Curiosity pulled me in, and I followed it deeper into the woods. The sunlight broke through the branches, casting strange shadows on the ground. I was captivated by the serene beauty around me, but an underlying anxiousness stayed like a shadow. Suddenly, I heard it again, the soft tapping, this time coming from the fallen branches scattered around. My heart raced. I turned to leave, but something caught my eye. A glint of metal peeked through the underbrush. I knelt to investigate and uncovered a rusty locket. It felt heavy in my hand. Opening it, I discovered a faded photograph inside a woman's face, her eyes staring straight into the camera. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen her before, but I didn't remember where. Then I noticed a name etched into the back, Clara. The name sent chills through me, bringing back the stories I'd read in the attic. Clara was one of the women who had gone missing. My hands trembled as I put the locket away, knowing I needed to get back to the cottage. I turned to leave when I heard whispers rise again, echoing through the trees, calling my name. This time, they were clearer, almost urgent. Panic set in. I looked around, half expecting to see the figure reappear. I hurried back to the cottage, my mind racing. The locket was still heavy in my pocket. What did it mean? Had Clara been looking for something? Had I disturbed something in the woods? My mind spun with questions, and I felt a mix of dread and determination. I needed answers. When I got back, I found the cottage eerily quiet. The whispers were gone, but something felt different. The air seemed thicker. I glanced around the living room. In the corner, I noticed a small notebook I hadn't seen before. I picked it up. It was filled with old notes and sketches, all detailing the lives of women who had lived in the area, their dreams, fears, and even some bizarre habits. That's when it hit me, a timeline began to emerge, one that led to Clara and others. The deeper I read, the more I felt a pull, like they were beckoning me to piece together their stories. As I turned the last page, I felt a draft sweep through the room. The notebook slipped from my fingers and landed with a thud. Then, the lights flickered. I heard that persistent tapping again, this time louder, desperate. I knew then I needed to confront whatever was haunting me. I grabbed my coat and prepared to step outside. Was Clara waiting for me? Before the door closed behind me, I caught a glimpse of movement in the back of my mind. I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was being drawn into a mystery far darker than I had ever imagined. I stepped outside, the cool air kissing my skin. The woods loomed ahead, shadows stretching like fingers, begging me to come closer. I felt a pull, something urging me back into the depths of what shouldn't be disturbed. Taking a deep breath, I pushed forward. The whispers returned, weaving through the trees like a haunting melody. I followed the sound, letting it guide me down the overgrown trail. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if an unseen weight pressed against my chest. I clutched the locket tightly, its cold metal grounding me in the chaos unfolding around me. What was Clara trying to tell me? Did she want answers, or was she warning me? Then, through a gap in the trees, I spotted a clearing. The air felt different there, thick, almost electric. As I stepped across the threshold, a chill raced down my spine. In the center of the clearing stood a large stone with strange carvings etched into it, symbols I didn't recognize. The scene felt both ancient and alive, as if the stone was a witness to unspeakable things. My heart pounded as I approached it, drawn in. Then, a rustle in the bushes snapped me back to reality. I turned quickly, my breath quickening. Was someone else here? I called out. Hello? Is anyone there? No response came, just the wind rustling the leaves. I took a step back, feeling vulnerable and exposed. That's when I saw it, a flash of white darted between the trees. My instincts told me to run, but a part of me wanted to investigate. I edged closer, curiosity overpowering my fear. As I moved through the brush, the whispers grew louder, almost frantic. Clara helped. The voice was faint and distant, yet it pierced through the ambient noise of the woods. I stumbled forward and tripped over a root, falling hard to the ground. Dirt and leaves filled my palms. When I looked up, I gasped. There, not far from my face, lay an old, worn journal half buried in the ground. The leather cover was cracked, but a sort of warmth radiated from it. I reached for it, pulling it free. Flipping it open, I found the familiar scrawl of Clara's handwriting. My pulse quickened as I read snippets. They come at night, you must not look. My throat tightened. I was getting closer to the truth, but the weight of the warning hung over me like a storm cloud. The tapping grew louder, urgent, just behind me. I turned around, my stomach twisting into knots. Then everything went dark. The sunlight vanished, swallowed by an unnatural shadow. Get out, a voice screamed, echoing in my mind. My heart raced as panic gripped me. I could barely see, but I heard movement. Someone was somewhere in the darkness, and the whispers surrounded me like a storm. I needed to escape. I bolted back toward the trail, the journal clutched tightly against my chest. Behind me, the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of panic. I couldn't look back. I needed to get to the cottage now. As I ran, I realized the weight of their stories was pulling me deeper into a nightmare. What I had uncovered was just the beginning, and I feared it wouldn't let me go without a fight. The ground crunched beneath my feet as I raced down the narrow path, each step echoing in the silence of the woods. An almost suffocating darkness loomed, but I refused to let it swallow me. I needed to reach the safety of the cottage. My heart hammered in my chest, drowning out the whispers, but they still clawed at my sanity. I stumbled and fell, scraping my hands on the rough earth. I cursed under my breath, forcing myself to rise again. I had to keep moving. The journal felt like an anchor, reminding me of Clara's warning, and the urgency pressed down harder. Just when I thought I could see the faint light of the cottage through the trees, the whispers returned, sharper than before. They come, panic surged through me. What was coming? Was it the same thing Clara had warned about? I broke into a full sprint, dodging branches and roots. The underbrush scratched at my skin, but I pushed through. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a flicker of white again, weaving in and out of the shadows. My resolve wavered. Was it Clara or something else? I felt tethered to the past, like I had no choice but to follow. Just as I made the decision to pursue the elusive figure, a loud snap echoed behind me. I froze. The sound resembled a branch breaking under the weight of something large. My breath caught in my throat. I turned slowly, fear tightening around me like a noose. And that's when I saw it, a hulking figure, its shape obscured in the gloom but unmistakably there. My heart sank. It stood unnaturally still, like it was observing me. I sensed its eyes boring into my back. Without thinking, I turned and bolted again, adrenaline crashing through me. I could barely see the trail now, panic distorted my perception. My mind raced with questions. What was it? Was it connected to Clara? Was it trying to protect me, or was it hunting? As I reached a clearing, the light of the cottage was almost within reach. But suddenly, the whispers turned into a roar. I felt the air shift, a wave of pressure enveloping me. I stumbled, nearly losing my footing. The journal slipped from my grasp, falling onto the ground. I couldn't stop. I couldn't look back. But as I ran, I felt a twinge of guilt. The words in the journal, what if they held the key to what I was facing? I hesitated for a brief moment but finally pressed on. Then, just before I reached the light of the cottage, I felt a sharp pain as something whipped past my arm. I cried out, spinning around to face my pursuer. In that moment of confrontation, everything froze. The dark shape loomed closer as I gasped for breath, too terrified to flee or fight. I was stuck in the liminal space between fear and understanding. What I hoped to find was a truth, but now, I was afraid I might find something worse, a revelation about Clara that would forever change everything I thought I knew. And then the figure spoke, its voice a low, gravelly whisper, "You, shouldn't he have come back?" My heart raced as I stared at the figure, a sense of dread washing over me. I felt trapped, as if the shadows wrapped around my feet like vines, holding me in place. The voice was deep, almost like a warning. It carried an unsettling weight. I was on the verge of breaking down and fleeing, but I had to know more. "Who are you?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to demand answers, but fear knotted my stomach and weakened my resolve. "I can't let you leave," it replied, its eyes narrowing just enough for me to catch a hint of unnerving clarity. "Not after what you've uncovered." A chill coursed through me. Was this thing connected to Clara? The need to know burned inside me, mixed with an instinct to run. I clenched my fists, trying to will away the weight of its presence. What do you mean? I pressed, fighting to maintain courage. What have I uncovered? The figure took a step closer, and I stumbled back instinctively. The air crackled with an unseen energy, the forest almost alive around us. Clara isn't who you think she is, it said, its voice resonating in the stillness. I blinked, confusion fogging my thoughts. Clara was just my friend, wasn't she? You're lying. She wouldn't. Clara is part of this place, the figure interrupted harshly, its tone heavy with certainty. She's linked to the darkness. That's why you're drawn to her. I felt a wave of anger rise within me, pushing back the fear. No. You don't know her. You don't know anything. But the figure just shook its head, unbothered. You think that by coming back, you can change things? You're only bringing more chaos. A sudden crash from deeper in the woods startled me. I jumped, glancing toward the source. What was lurking just out of sight? The stories Clara told me flashed through my mind, tales of things that went bump in the night, of spirits and shadows that thrived on secrets. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to run to the cottage, to safety, to my memories of happier times with Clara. But I also needed the truth. What do you want from me? I demanded, my voice wavering. Find the journal, it whispered. It has the answers you seek. But beware, things don't just fade away. The figure stepped back into the shadows, blending into the darkness as if it had never been there. The moment it disappeared, the forest seemed to breathe again, the whispers rising like a tempest. I hesitated, torn. Should I go back for the journal? I could decipher what Clara had left behind, figure out what all of this meant. But as I turned toward where I had lost it, a soft, melodic voice cut through the chaos. Help me! It was Clara's voice, sweet and laced with urgency. It echoed from the woods, wrapping around me like a promise but also a warning. My heart raced again. What did she want? I felt the tension in the air rise. I was no longer just running from something unknown. I was on the brink of uncovering truths that might shatter everything. With only a breath to decide, I took a step back toward the darkness, following the sound of her voice into the unknown. The forest seemed alive as I stepped deeper, the underbrush crackling beneath my feet. Clara's voice was a faint echo, pulling me forward. Help me! It felt like a lifeline, but there was something ominous about the way it floated on the chilly night air. As I walked, the branches overhead twisted like gnarled fingers, blocking out the moonlight. Shadows danced around me, and with each step I took, the unease in my stomach grew heavier. Was I really ready to face whatever Clara was dealing with? I tried to shake it off. I had to be brave. The voice urged me on, slicing through the fear. I'm here. I called out, my voice sounding small and insignificant against the vastness of the woods. Clara! Where are you? There was a moment of silence, and then another sound pierced through the stillness, a soft weeping, fragile and desperate. It seemed to come from a grove of trees to my left. I turned, heart pounding. Was she hurt? I stumbled toward the noise, branches scratching at my arms as if trying to hold me back. When I reached the clearing, the sight unsettled me. The moonlight cascaded down, illuminating a small figure huddled against an ancient oak. My pulse quickened. I approached cautiously and realized it wasn't Clara. It was another girl, thin and shivering, her eyes wide with fear. Who are you? She whimpered, trembling as if she had seen something I couldn't. You shouldn't be here. You have to leave. Where's Clara? I demanded, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Is she here? She shook her head violently, her breath hitching. No. She's trapped. You have to go. It's coming. My heart sank. Trapped? What do you mean? I pressed, panic bubbling inside me. What's coming? Before she could answer, a low growl erupted from behind the trees. It was deep, primal, and full of malice. It sent waves of dread crashing over me. The girl's eyes grew even wider, and she pressed herself against the tree, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Something wants you," she whispered, backing away. "You have to run." I felt the urge to flee, but I couldn't abandon Clara. "I need to find her," I shouted, desperate. "No." The girl's voice sharpened. "You don't understand. The darkness knows you're here. If you find Clara now, it will take you both." My instinct screamed for me to get out. But I needed to help Clara. I was terrified of what was hunting us, but leaving without knowing what had happened wasn't an option. I stepped closer to the girl, trying to get her to tell me more. "What do you mean? I can't just leave her." But just then, a figure burst from the shadows, dragging me back into the darkness, its growl reverberating in my bones. Suddenly, everything went dark around me. It wasn't Clara's voice anymore. It was a rumble of chaos, and the cold air pressed in from all sides. I couldn't see where I was being taken, but I felt the weight of shadows closing in around me. I realized, in that instant, I was no longer just searching for Clara. I was running for my life, and I didn't even know who or what I was up against. I hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from my lungs. The darkness felt alive around me, an oppressive blanket that pushed down, making it hard for me to breathe. I squinted, trying to make out shapes, but the thick shadows were as impenetrable as the night sky. I forced myself to sit up, panic clawing at my chest. I couldn't see the girl anymore. Had she been swept away too? Quickly, I pulled myself up, heart racing, and listened. The growl had faded, but the echoes of something sinister lingered in the air. "Clara!" I yelled, voice trembling. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. I was all alone, or so I thought. As my eyes adjusted, I spotted movement to my right. It was faint, nothing more than a flicker, but I felt compelled to follow. Cautiously, I stepped forward, trying not to make noise. The brush crackled beneath my feet. The stillness of the forest felt heavy, pressing in on me. Then I heard it again. A soft whimpering. My heart tugged toward the sound, and I veered toward it. It grew louder, more desperate. I stumbled forward, pushing aside branches that reached out like spindly fingers, begging me not to go closer. In a small glade, the moonlight broke free, illuminating a familiar figure on the ground. I rushed toward it, my fingers trembling as I reached out. "Clara? Is that you?" The figure turned, and in the light, I could see a face stained with tears and dirt. It was Clara, but she looked different, hollowed out and lost. "I thought you'd left me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I thought you wouldn't come." "I'm here now," I replied, the relief flooding through me. "What happened?" "We need to get out of here." She crawled closer, her eyes wide with terror. I don't know. It just came for me." It was dark and cold. A shiver passed through her, and I felt a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the temperature. I scanned the trees surrounding us. They felt closer now, as if they were pressing in. "We can't stay here," I urged. "We have to run." But as I reached for her hand, a low growl rose from behind the one I had heard before. This time, it was accompanied by rustling leaves. Something was in the shadows, watching us, waiting. I tugged Clara to her feet just as the energy in the air shifted. It felt electric, like the anticipation before a storm. "Run!" I screamed, and we bolted, racing into the depths of the forest. But the darkness was relentless. Branches reached out, snatching at us, slowing our escape. I could hear it now, a presence, moving with us, a malicious force that thrived in our panic. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it, a flash of movement, something darting between the trunks of the trees. A shadow far too large to be an animal. I didn't want to look closer, but my curiosity clawed at me. Suddenly, a scream cut through the night. It was sharp and piercing, a sound of utter despair that froze me in my tracks. Clara's breath caught beside me. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, fear etched across her face. "Yes," I replied, heart racing. "But we can't stop now. We need to that s." When I saw it, fully emerging from the shadowed cover of the trees, and my scream caught in my throat. It wasn't he alone. The first thing I noticed was its size. It loomed larger than any creature I had ever seen. Muscles rippled under matted fur, glistening even in the dim light. I squeezed Clara's hand, and she gripped back tightly, her knuckles white. The thing had eyes, two glowing orbs boring into us, filled with a predatory hunger. I blinked, hoping it was a trick of the light, but the creature remained, standing motionless, as if sizing us up. Panic swelled inside me. Then, without warning, it lunged. My instincts kicked in. "Run!" I shouted again, and we turned, sprinting into the forest. I could hear it behind us, crashing through the underbrush, steady and relentless. Branches whipped at my face, leaving stinging marks as we dodged through the trees. I focused on the ground, trying to avoid roots and obstacles. Clara was just behind me, her breathing heavy and labored. As we ran, I felt a surge of despair tugging at my heart. The growing distance between us and the creature felt like a countdown. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was just toying with us, its escape assured while we were prey in its game. "Where do we go?" Clara gasped, her voice cutting through the night air. It was a valid question. But I was too scared to find an answer. "Just keep moving," I yelled back, praying I would find a way out of this nightmare. We pushed deeper into the woods, the landscape becoming increasingly unfamiliar. The shadows played tricks on my mind, and for a moment, I thought I saw a path ahead. "This way!" I shouted, steering us toward what looked like a faint opening between the trees. As we approached, the sense of urgency escalated. I glanced back, expecting to see the beast gaining ground, but instead, I saw nothing. The forest fell silent. "Did we lose it?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. I wanted to believe that, but the unease settled deeper. "I don't know. Stay close." We entered a small clearing, a glimmer of moonlight filtering through the branches. I took a moment to catch my breath, scanned the area for any signs of safety. Glowing fungi clung to the damp earth, casting a strange blue light. My instincts screamed at me to keep moving, but I couldn't ignore the bewildering sight. "Look at that!" Clara pointed, her eyes wide. "Is that?" I stepped closer, the bioluminescent plants drawing me in. They swayed slightly, as if beckoning us. But then I remembered the growing dread in my gut. "No, we shouldn't. We have to keep moving," I insisted, turning away from the captivating glow. Before I could lead Clara back, a rustle in the trees interrupted us. I felt my heart leap. Was it the creature again? But no. A figure emerged. My breath caught. It was a person. They stood there, face hidden under a hood, silhouetted against the blue light. "What are you doing here?" the figure asked, voice low and eerie. Suddenly, the forest felt alive again, crackling with anxiety. Who was this stranger? What did they want? I'd hoped for answers, but I feared I had just invited another threat into our already dangerous night. I took a step back, instinctively pulling Clara closer. The figure remained still, the hood casting a shadow that obscured their face. I scanned the clearing, half expecting the creature to burst forth from the trees, ready to pounce. "Who are you?" I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling more than I intended. The stranger shifted slightly, as if contemplating my question. "I could ask you the same." Their voice was steady, almost calm, which only added to my unease. "You're far from home. What brings you to these woods?" I hesitated. Did we even have a home right now? We were exploring. The word felt weak and fake as it left my lips. What kind of exploration involved being chased by a monster? The figure took a step closer, the moonlight revealing a glint in their eyes. Exploration can be dangerous here. You've crossed into a realm where not everything is as it seems. Clara's grip tightened on my arm. I didn't like where this conversation was headed. What do you mean? I asked, trying to pin down the stranger's meaning. They pointed toward the glowing fungi. Those are not what you think. They can lure people in, make them forget. If you stay too long, their voice trailed off menacingly. My heart raced as I processed their words. Forget what? A low growl echoed from the trees. It was distant, but unmistakable. The figure's eyes flickered toward the sound, then back at us. You need to go. Now. I exchanged a glance with Clara. Panic washed over her face. But what about you? She whispered. I can't help you, the figure said quickly. You must run. The beast it's drawn to fear. With that warning ringing in my ears, I turned and barreled back toward the thick of the trees. I didn't want to look back. I could feel Clara following close behind, her breaths fast and frantic. The tall trees began to close in again, the shadows swallowing us whole. I felt disoriented, branches snagging at my clothes as we plunged deeper into the forest. The low growl from earlier morphed into a haunting howl, a sound that chilled me to the bone. It was closing in. Where do we go? Clara panted, her voice barely above a whisper. Not the path, I said, glancing at the faint outline of the trail we had seen before. We need to get off it. We won't lose it on the path. Suddenly, I spotted a narrow gap between two massive trees. I steered us toward it, squeezing through the tight space. On the other side, the ground sloped downward into a small ravine, surrounded by dense bushes. Down there! I shouted, practically dragging Clara as we stumbled into the hollow. I hoped this would hide us, even if just for a moment. We crouched low against the muddy earth, my heart pounding as I listened. The howling faded into the distance, leaving only the haunting rustles of the night surrounding us. But then, I noticed something odd. A glimmer caught my eye from the foot of a nearby tree. I squinted to see better, but the darkness obscured everything. What was it? A clue? Or perhaps another secret waiting to be uncovered in this eerie forest? Stay quiet, I whispered, as I leaned closer to investigate. I didn't know what to expect, but I was about to find out. My heart raced as I crawled closer to the glimmer. The damp earth squelched beneath my hands, and I glanced back at Clara, who was still huddled against the side of the ravine, her eyes wide with fear. Just a moment, I whispered, trying to reassure her even though I felt anything but calm. The flicker came from something half buried in the leaves, an object that seemed different from the surroundings. I reached down, brushing away dirt and twigs. A small mirror, its edges tarnished with age, lay nestled there. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. It caught the faint light of the moon filtering through the trees, the reflection revealing not just my face, but something more. In the mirror, I saw Clara, but she looked distorted, almost shadow-like, her outline flickering as if she were only partially present. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. Hey, look at this, I called softly, glancing back at her. She leaned in, her expression a mix of confusion and dread. What is it? I held the mirror between us. I don't know, but before I could finish, the air shifted. I felt it, not just a breeze, but a presence, a weight in the atmosphere. It felt like the creature was nearby, drawn by something unexplainable. In that instant, the shadows around us warped, swirling as if they had come alive. I clutched the mirror tighter, focusing on Clara. We need to go, I urged, the urgency of our situation sharpening my instincts. But the distorted reflection held me captive. Within it, echoes of past figures popped in and out, faces of the women I had read about in the attic, including Clara's. Each one flickered with a haunting desperation, eyes hollow, as if looking for release. This isn't just a mirror, I realized with dawning horror. It's like a portal. What? Clara asked, worry creeping into her voice. We can't stay here. I could already hear the rustle of leaves and the low growl returning, heavier and closer. Then let us see if it connects to something else. Acting on instinct, I raised the mirror, hoping that maybe it could reflect our reality back into clarity. I need you to focus with me. Think of a way out. Are you crazy? She shot back, but the urgency was evident in her tone. She edged closer, pressing her shoulder against mine. I don't know what this is doing, but it can't be worse than waiting for that thing to find us. With hesitation, we focused on the mirror, concentrating on any semblance of safety we could muster. Show us a way out, I whispered, begging whatever force was behind this to respond. The surface began to ripple, and then images flashed, the cottage, the woods, and then a blinding light. There! I shouted, pointing. But just as I did, the monstrous growl erupted from above us, sending chills down my spine. Go! Clara screamed, and before I could process her command, she lunged forward, pushing me toward the increasingly vibrant reflection. It was now brighter than the forest around us, urging me to step through. Without thinking twice, I sprinted toward the mirror's light, the shadows seeming to claw at my back in a final desperate grasp. I could feel the weight of Clara behind me, a comforting presence fueling my flight. As we dove toward the brilliance, air rushed past, a deafening roar overtaking my senses. The last thing I saw of the dark forest was its kaleidoscope of shadows before the light consumed us whole. I landed on solid ground, scrambling upright. The cottage stood before us, untouched. The comforting embrace of my rented refuge felt surreal compared to the chaos we just escaped. We made it. Clara gasped, her voice shaky with disbelief. Heart still hammering, I turned. The mirror, where was it? I glanced back, expecting to see its glittering surface in the light, but it was gone. Only the sound of our breath filled the air. Did we really escape? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I think so, I replied, feeling the remnants of fright ebb from my chest. But we need to be careful. I picked up a lantern from the porch. A faint tapping echoed from the trees, a reminder that the woods held mysteries. That wouldn't easily fade. Had we truly escaped the creature, or had we merely stepped away from its reach? My thoughts swirled. I couldn't shake the lingering unease, even after our narrow escape. Outside, the wind wound through the branches, whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. Some questions remained unanswered. Why had the mirror shown Clara that way? Was it some kind of warning? And what would happen if I took the path back into the woods? I still think about it sometimes, that night in the dark forest. I moved away from the cottage the next week. I began anew, yet the memory of those whispers, the tapping that had beckoned, echoed in my mind. I try not to dwell on it, to forget those stories etched into the darkness. But I wonder if the woods are still waiting for someone to uncover their secrets. I guess I'll never know.